I am starting in the farthest reaches of Chile with no badges and no experience. My mission is to make landfall the other side of the Pacific Ocean and take charge of a club in New Zealand. The catch is I need to manage one coastal club in every country that touches the Pacific Ocean along the way. Good news then that there are quite a few to choose from. To give me a smidgen of a chance of pulling this challenge off, I focused my managerial attributes on building early adaptability, and I'm going to need it because this is a speed run. I move club and country when I win a trophy or my contract expires. If I'm sacked, that could get messy. Oh, and we have some squad building rules around here. I'm only allowed to sign 2 types of players. Kaiju, big, aggressive, towering monsters, and Jaegers, big, brave, towering robot monsters. This is the ultimate globetrotting football manager adventure, and an excuse for lots of bad puns about giant robots and giant lizards, because I'm a geek and it's my video. Welcome to Pacific Rim FM. Now, the jumping on point for this crazy challenge is Deportes Concepcion in the 1st Division B. When I set this save up, I started with a typical English pre-season date, by which point of the year the most southerly club in Chile was having an absolute nightmare season. Terrible for them, perfect for me. And as you can see, it's not like they were being hard done by. On expected goals, they were exactly where they deserved to be. But I could tell this club had potential. They had finished 2nd in the 1st division in the past, admittedly 1975, and they've also won the league in which we're beginning this adventure twice before. I have to say, I was pretty pleased with their facilities as well. Immaculate stadium, hosting 30,000 people, fairly decent training facilities, and the board were only expecting us to finish in mid-table. So it felt like a pretty safe club to start building a reputation at while, learning how to speak Spanish. So to be honest, if I made it through to the end of the season without getting sacked, I'll consider that a bonus. Some work to do though. Mostly, we were definitely going to have to sell before we could buy, because we were absolutely maxed out on wage budget. Brilliant. So obviously, first thing I did was take a look at this squad. How many kaiju and how many Jaegers did we have in the team? And who did we need to bin off pretty quick? Now, it turned out, at least according to my assistant manager's judge of ability, we had some pretty decent players in the squad. Gomez, Carrasco, Larrivee, Saavedra, Sepulveda all looked pretty decent, and they would form a good bedrock for what we were going to try to accomplish, that being a fluid counter-attacking system. Again, assistant manager recommended. And to fit entirely in keeping with my no badges and no experience background, I'm putting my research skills to work and going with what I've seen to work well on YouTube in the past, with the odd little tweak: 4-2-3-1. Well, it's a 4-2-3-1 in possession, dropping into a 4-3-3 in a defensive shape. Very much the quite straightforward, put your best players in their best positions kind of approach. But interestingly, the familiarity with those roles was very concerning. It was going to take a while for these tactics to really bed in. Whatever they've been doing before, clearly this FM-friendly approach was not it. Fingers crossed though, we would get off to a good start, at least as far as the supporters are concerned. They wanted us to keep developing players using the club's youth system. They wanted entertaining football, and they wanted us to get the better of rivals Fernandez Vial, and also be competitive against Huachipato if we happen to play against them. We were already disappointing in that one, so presumably we played them earlier in the season and lost. Wasn't sure why I was having that held against me, and strangely, even the board let me know that they were very disappointed with our progress towards the club vision 1 hour and 50 minutes after I started the job. Charming. Well, interestingly, my assistant manager immediately recommended a change to the captaincy. If the board was already frustrated and the supporters were fed up with me, what harm could changing the captain do? I spoke to Saavedra, he agreed at least, so we gave the role to Arcada, a regular starter with the highest leadership at the club. Saavedra, one of our star players and the best left back at the club, then let me know the very next day that he was considering his options at the end of his contract. I could see this was going to go well already. So when I introduced myself to the squad, told them I'm passionate about the tactical side of the game, that I want to build a culture of resilience, that I know how to get things done, it made absolutely no difference whatsoever. Maybe speaking to the media might go a little better. I started off with a neutral atmosphere and ended my first press conference with a neutral atmosphere. Excellent. Larrivé, our star striker, did seem on board with the aim for a mid-table finish at least, even if no one else cared. Now, by day 3, acting very quickly, I managed to ship out one of our centre-backs who was never going to get in the team. I mean, look at this. Pitiful. No aggression, no strength, no work rate, no kaiju or Jaeger DNA to be found anywhere. And then I started to bring a load of players in on trial to see, well, if any of them might be any good at all. No. Maybe. No. Maybe. No. One's interesting though. For some extra wage savings, we shipped out a 4th choice goalkeeper. And then I got the scout report for Rangers de Talca, our first opponent, most likely to play a 4-4-2 narrow diamond against us. And they had not been in the best of form, so hopefully we might be able to get off to a, not terrible start. Unfortunately, it felt like the club's alumni were against me from the off. Patricio had raised his concerns about our current poor form, and the media then went to town saying it couldn't possibly be helpful for me to have a club favourite speaking so openly about my recent bad results. As if they were my recent bad results. Just give me, a week to get my feet under the table. So trying to be diplomatic, trying to be the better person, I let them know I wasn't over the moon when I read these comments. Not that I actually did read the comments because, I can't speak and certainly not read Spanish yet. So someone somewhere translated. Thank you very much. But it's clear that he still cares for the club and he wants to see us do well, just like me. And then, to calm down, I went for a walk to see what awaited me at the Estadio Estaroa, the home of Deportes, Concepcion. And I have to say, I was pretty impressed for a 2nd division team. Look at the way this place lights up at night time. I could just imagine the energy and the fervour going on a walk with the fans on match day. And wow, that purple kit is exquisite. And if we zoom out a bit, Concepcion right here is where we're kicking off this first match of the Pacific Rim Challenge. It's as far south in Chile as I could start, and pretty close to the Pacific coast, so just about qualified. There you go, you can see the Estadio Estaroa on the outskirts of the city. So there I was, looking forward to match day, and then realised I hadn't read or understood the rules for matches in this league whatsoever, because my match day squad needed to have at least 2 under 21 players in it, which messed with everything that I had planned. So after some fiddling around, some scribbling out of names on the team sheets and resubmitting them to the referee, this is the lineup we went for in my first match in charge. Gomez in goal. Outstanding attributes for this level of football. And in fact, my assistant manager thought he was already a leading player for the 1st division. That's the league above the one we're currently playing in. Good stuff. Morales at right back, another loanee who admittedly is somewhat lacking in kaiju and Jaeger DNA, but the best option we have for this position at this point in time. The centre-back pairing was Carrasco and Cornejo. Now Carrasco, 30 years old, really solid defender, played in the first division for 6 years before dropping to our current level, and Cornejo caught my eye because of his strength, his stamina, his pace, his jumping reach, his work rate. The only DNA he was lacking was aggression, but you know, that's something we could work on. At left back, we began with Saavedra, who you've already met before. Very pacey, good crosser, and in fact, his kaiju and Jaeger attributes are pretty solid across the board. Very pleased to see that. Then, at the base of midfield, in a defensive midfielder role, I picked club captain Silva. Now, I know he's 34 years old, not amazing ability, but he had exactly the DNA that I was looking for. I was very surprised to see that he'd only started 4 matches before I joined. As a leading second division player on current ability, I was hopeful he would make a difference in that defensive role. Then, just ahead of him, Manzo. He had started 19 times so far, so it looked like he'd been pretty much ever present for the whole season. And again, that DNA that I was looking for, apart from jumping reach, pretty solid. And I was very much looking forward to seeing the wingers in action, the team's best performers so far this season. Ovale was an out-and-out right winger. He had the pace, the acceleration, the dribbling ability. He didn't have the strength and the jumping reach that I would be ideally looking for in this type of player, but good aggression, good work rate. I was happy with this. And same goes for Caceres, more naturally at home on the right, so I had to play him as an inverted winger on the left, but again, DNA-wise, apart from jumping reach, pretty much fulfilled what I was looking for. Between them, in the attacking midfield slot, the one player I felt we were playing slightly out of his best role and not really maximising, Sepulveda. Although that being said, he was a naturally advanced playmaker. I just wanted to play him as a channel midfielder running between the lines to get into scoring positions. He had the pace to do it, the acceleration, his off the ball running was good enough. So we would see how he gets on, because finally up front we had the ultimate Jaeger kaiju for him to play off of. Joaquin Larrivee. Can you imagine my delight when I arrived at this club and met this guy? 6'1", 14 jumping reach, strength of 13, 20 determination, high aggression, high bravery, high work rate, excellent heading. I mean, basically, knock the ball to him as often as possible. That was going to be the game plan. Although he hadn't exactly set the world alight. 19 goals in 31 appearances in this division last year, good. 2 in 16 so far this year. Would I be able to get the best out of him? Now, on the bench, we had Nicolas Araya, our backup goalkeeper, Angel Gillard, a very much fringe striker who had made 15 substitute appearances without achieving anything of note so far this season, Kimura, who was a little short for a kaiju, but actually pretty good in other respects, either right or central defence. Jonathan Espanola, who was lacking strength, but that very high aggression and excellent bravery could cover either the left or central defensive positions. Clearly, we were overloaded with defenders in this squad, because I also selected for the bench left-back Diego Zambrano, again, mostly because of those kaiju attributes being fantastic. Fabian Nunez, a little bit flimsy for my liking, but did have some real adaptability across the front line, which was probably going to come in quite handy. Brian Valdivia, another flexible attacking midfielder who made 14 substitute appearances so far this season. And then the kids, who I was duty-bound, rule-bound to include out of necessity. Nicolas Louillier, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, a 20-year-old central defender, and Alexis Mancia, who, to be fair, at 6 foot, with good strength, aggression, work rate, jumping reach, did look like he had some serious kaiju potential. We went on the attack quickly. In the 12th minute, Ovale running into the box, putting it across and obviously into the side netting. Was that the best that it would get? Well, corner from Saavedra, in swinging with his left boot and cleared out again for a throw-in. So far, pretty unimpressive. But then, 26th minute, Morales got on the ball, played to Avale, and then a beautiful ball over the top to Sepulveda. He cut back to Avale, to Larrivate at the back post, and the moment was gone. But no, it wasn't, because Sepulveda nodded in. 1-0 to Concepcion. A throw-in from Caceres to Saavedra. Beautiful ball in, but then cleared away. Morales played the ball to Avale, and then Larrivate. Oh, so close in the 37th minute. Then they got on the ball, and obviously my worst fears were about to be realised. They lumped the ball upfield. But look at that. We actually cleared the ball, and that kind of fluid counter-attack that I was aiming for completely fell apart because we overran the pass and then they got through again. But we defended again. It was almost like after 45 minutes, this tactic looked like it might actually be working. Were we going to go in 1-0 up at half-time, having won 4 matches in the previous 19 games? Yeah, we did. And then Gomez, with a beautiful save from a free kick in the 62nd minute, kept us in the lead. From the resulting corner, once again we managed to clear. Morales had the opportunity to break, and he did so at pace. The way that this team was breaking forward was delighting me. It was exactly what I was hoping for from the tactic. Now, 72nd minute, the ball played back to the central defenders, just keeping it nice and simple. Carrasco out to Espanola, who we brought on, and he knocked it way past to nobody. But then Avale picked up the loose ball, cutting across, and look at that. That under 21-year-old Mancia, who I didn't even have on the bench until I realised I got the rules wrong, nodded in for our second goal. And then a long throw, and 3-0 after 79 minutes. Another goal from a substitute, this time Valdivela. The performances were amazing. Avale, a 9.4. The entire back 5 performing above a 7. Sepulveda getting a 7.3 when I was convinced I was playing him out of his best role. And if we look at the XG, we completely deserved that. This was not a fluke win. We absolutely bossed it. Even the media, who pointed out that we had lost 3 of our last 5 home games, felt that we had turned our dominance into victory. And look at that performance from Avale. He ran further than anybody else. Better expected assists than anyone else. Fantastic. I couldn't believe that Kimura made his debut in that game though. I mean, based on what we saw previously before the match in terms of his attributes, how has he been on the bench the entire season? I'll tell you what though, we might not have pass maps or heat maps at the moment in this game, but those momentum and XG visualizations, oh, they were a joy to behold. So, after the first match, I quickly switched my attention to finding new kaiju and Jaegers to bring in to bolster this team. One of them in particular looked very tasty. 17 aggression, 15 jumping reach, 6'4", and I was also very taken by Gino Alusema because of his natural ability in that defensive midfield role. I felt I needed someone, certainly extra depth, to play alongside or instead of Silva. I wasn't 100% convinced by Manzo at this point. And as you can see, apart from his jumping reach, ticks all the boxes that I was looking for. And rather beautifully, he didn't even want a whole load of money. £150 a week and a 1-year extension after 10 league games if we could avoid relegation. More than happy with that. Next up, we had Deportes Recoleta. They were sitting 4th in the league, but they were on awful form. Even worse than Rangers had been previously. I let the media know I was under no illusions about how hard they would make it for us. and they decided to then turn negative against me. Wonderful, great start, so much for boosting media relations. I was still very much an unknown quantity though. Recoletta's manager didn't know what to expect and felt that was part of the charm of football. Well, I didn't know what to expect either, and I certainly hadn't predicted a 5.5 hour, 500-kilometre drive to my first away game. Chile is, it's quite a long country, and we were heading to the capital, Santiago, for our very first away match of the Pacific Rim adventure. After the previous performance, the team was unchanged and I was feeling confident. I told the team it's about time we shut a few people up and proved that their criticism is unfounded. It even inspired some of the players as they walked out onto the pitch. Would we cope with the challenging conditions? Would our pre-match huddle fire the boys up for another amazing victory? Join me next time to find out.